Yeah, we have got long left. Good. So if I just take 4 or 5 minutes of this, okay?
That's fine.
Now, have you got anything that you want to raise?
You're the student.
You're the boss.
I don't think of myself like that. Not ever. Not.
Do you want it? Would I just say a little bit then about your inquiry?
Please.
Me?
Yeah.
That's very good.
Okay. I'm just trying to get my head into the space. All right. About exploring learning and looking at learning, and maybe just to go back and talk a bit about Joan's influence to a large extent on a lot of what I do. And to say that Joan has had an influence from the point of view that what I was doing I didn't recognize at that point was worthy of much as well. And I think Joan identifying that what I was doing, and I mean I still remember the 30th of March. It's closing date today, you got to sign the bottom line to register. You remember that?
Yes.
It was like, the 30th of March, today is the last day for applications for the doctorate. If you don't register today, you're never ever going to be able to register because they're taking the doctorate away. And this is the last registrations of the doctorates.
Forever.
In education, that because there were some huge problems and they were taking the doctorate qualification away from DUT. And she sat me down in the car and she said, now, what you are, I said, but Joan, I'm not doing doctorate stuff. And she said, what you have done and what you are doing is doctorate stuff. And like I sat there and I said, okay, you're the doctor, you maybe know about these things, I don't know about it. And Joan actually managing to convince me that the work that I've done, the intervention that I had done in terms of curriculum intervention for staff and working with staff is worthy of study and is worthy of being called research. So for me that was quite a bit of a journey initially, which she took me on, and which I must say I didn't go in kicking and screaming too much. But yeah, so for me that whole awareness of trying to then, and the process of, I found that very, very, very good. The process that we went through, Joan and I, in terms of me trying to discover what it is that I am really doing and what it is that's worthy of research.
Great.
And then of course the hurdles that we faced in terms of the institution and trying to ensure that we write the proposal. And I think that for me was quite a bit of a, I mean, we started off asking the question, so what is active about active learning?
It's one of Delysia's favourites. I love the questions Delysia comes up with.
Yeah.
She challenges all the holy grails.
Well, what was it then? Because Delysia is saying that it was your recognition that mattered so much. I mean, what happens with you, Joan, when you relate to a wide range of people and I think excite them to their own possibilities for research? And yet I know that in your publications at the moment you haven't drawn attention to that quality that you express, which is a relational one of recognition. I'm just really curious because you do.
Jack, I do actually talk about this quite often, but I've never written about it. And that is that very, very early on in my teaching career, which is now just over 40 years ago, I was puzzled by the gap between what I taught and what my learners learned. Because I knew what I had taught, and when my learners were required to give evidence of what they had learned, the gap was enormous. I mean, I could barely recognize any congruence between my activity and their expression. And at first I thought it was just me, and that I was a bad teacher. And then a little bit later on, I was made a head of a department, if you like, within a school, where I was in charge of 35 teachers. And all of the learners in that school were examined externally, either by the South African Guild of Speech and Drama Teachers or by the Trinity College of London. And every year, when the exam results came out and the reports came out, I would have a stream of desperately distressed teachers standing in front of my desk saying, "But Joan, I taught him that." And I'd say, "Yes, Anne, I know you did, and I'm sure you did. But Joan, I taught him that." And that just affirmed for me that there is a huge gap between what we teach and what our learners learn, or what others teach us and what we learn. And so I think my guiding question throughout my professional life is, why do we have a gap between what we teach and what we learn? And latterly I've begun to realize that it is a big question, and that if we can get anywhere near answering that question, we begin to understand what learning really is about.
Okay.
And I think that's what I see in people. I see people who create ways of teaching that enable learning. And I see this in Delysia. I see it in all these people that you have been speaking to, or most of these people you have been speaking to. And the fascinating further perception I have is that they all do it differently. And so there must be something in the process of learning that's common, because the teaching is so different. But there's something in the process of learning that's common. And that's my big question.
Yeah, yeah. But as well as being